Welcome to the Vault itself. Thank you for joining me. This information is exclusive, brought to you by this network. Jada Pinkett Smith has decided to come forward to speak about her relationship with Will Smith, the slap between he and Mr. Chris Rock, a book that will be released this week titled Worthy. You're now listening to The Vault XL. Thank you for joining me.
Worthy, she opened up about an issue that has been kept secret until now. There are so many surprising things in the book, but the thing that surprised me the most, that I actually had to reread it because I said, is this true?
Right.
Was that in 2016, you and Will decided that you were going to live completely separate lives.
Yes.
It was not a divorce on paper,
Right.
but it was a divorce. So from the year 2016, which is 7 years ago now,
Yes.
y'all have been apart.
Yeah.
But in public, the couple who married in 1997 denied the gossip about their marriage. This interview on Bravo's Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen was taped a year after Will and Jada separated.
So how long have you guys been together?
23 years.
Wow. That's amazing. How do you keep it hot?
How do I keep it hot? Maybe I don't know. I mean, I'm baffled, really.
Yeah, right.
Over the next several years, Jada and Will kept up the appearance of a committed married couple. They even faced a scandal when Jada had what she called an entanglement with a family friend. Neither let the public know they had already split. So I guess my question is, I feel like you're a straight talker,
I am.
except you're not sometimes.
Yeah.
So why do that? Like, what was the reason?
I think just not being ready yet. Still trying to figure out between the two of us.
Yeah.
How to be in partnership, right? And in regards to how do we present that to people, and we hadn't figured that out.
During our walk in Baltimore, Jada reflected on their breakup. Why did the relationship fracture?
Oh, why a fracture? That's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think by the time we got to 2016, we were just exhausted with trying. I think we were both kind of still stuck in our fantasy of what we thought the other person should be.
Jada says she considered a legal divorce, but could never go through with it.
I made a promise that there will never be a reason for us to get a divorce. We will work through whatever. And I just haven't been able to break that promise.
But you still live separately.
We live separately.
I have so many questions.
So do I.
I have so many
It was the
questions.
strangest,
I'm sure you do.
it was the strangest kind of revelation to realize that these two people have had separate lives. I mean, they have not called each other husband and wife in all of those years.
Except for the appearance everywhere they went.
Except for the appearances, right? Including at the Oscars.
Yes.
By the way, there's a whole chunk in this book that we're going to get into in the Dateline special and also a little later here of what happened in that moment when he said, get my wife's name out of your mouth,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a whole backstory there too. But Jada is candid and honest in this book. I mean, she's saying things that she's never said. So they've kind of been living this pretend life publicly.
For years.
They knew the secret. They know it.
So now she's telling everyone.
Yeah.
But they're not divorced.
Nope.
So they're
And they don't
separated.
plan on it. They don't plan on getting divorced.
I think a lot of American families can relate, though. I think there's a lot more distance between husbands and wives than anybody ever really talks about.
Yeah.
But this sounds like something.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
bigger goal.
Yeah, it's a bigger delta.
We have a lot more on this conversation. I was fascinated by her, by the way. First time I'd sat down and spoke with her for a long period of time.
Oh, I
We
want
read
to
the
see
book.
more.
I read the book from cover to cover. Yeah, we're going to do a special on NBC News. It's called Jada's Story, Friday night, 8/7 Central.
I want to hear your podcast with her so
On
we can go like
NBC.
2 hours long.
Let's
for
go,
Yeah.
Carson. All right.
Well, it's
Go,
going to
you
be
go.
so
Do that.
interesting.
All right. Today's show is the source. If you need verification for that said information, thank you for joining me. Jada Pinkett Smith addresses Will slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. Thank you for joining me. Hello, Sammy P. Thank you for tuning in.
I could tell it bothered you. You did an eye roll. Like,
Right. Yeah. And I did that eye roll, not so much for me. And I think this is really important, but the fact that there could be a jab at alopecia.
Will then went on a profane tirade warning Chris not to mention his wife's name. Jada couldn't believe what she was hearing.
What is going on? Now, first of all, I'm really shocked because, mind you, I'm not there. We haven't called each other husband and wife in a long time. I'm like, what is going on right now?
My wife's name
out of your mouth, right? And I'm like, but now I'm really worried for Will because I don't know what's going on.
What viewers did not see at the time, while Oscar clips were being shown, was Chris Rock leaning over the stage to talk to Jada.
And Chris looks to me and he says, Jada, I meant no harm. Now I'm just out of it because I'm really worried about
And what's Will doing? He's just sitting there?
And Will's still talking. He's like, because now he's mad because Chris is talking to me. And I go, Chris, this is about some old shit. That's all I could think to say, right? And I couldn't really take in his apology.
How unusual for Will, a guy who, I mean, on that kind of stage to do something so insane.
Absolutely.
It's totally out of
not
character.
Him whatsoever.
And to Jada's surprise, she was also blamed. You became the bad guy. Look what Jada made him do. Jada rolled her eyes and look what he did. He ran up there and hit Chris.
Yeah.
Poor Will. That's what the narrative became.
Yeah.
She says that's because 2 years earlier, Jada discussed what she called an entanglement on her show, Red Table Talk.
My honest opinion about that is that narrative had more to do with the false narrative that I helped to create on the Red Table.
So poor Will because of the
adulterous wife.
Yeah.
Who forced him to go to the table and sit there, you know what I mean? And now look at what she's done. She has the power with an eye roll to make him go up and slap somebody on stage.
So that was from her point of view, and she says that there was bad blood between Chris Rock and Will from before. But she said she actually thought it was like a bit because she said she watched them storm up, and Will had been up and down throughout the Oscars, and then no one asked them to leave. No one said you got to
feel like I don't understand it at all. I still don't. They had been together for 7 years at that point, right? Yep. Or whatever, 6, 7 years. And then she's shocked because he's like, don't talk about my wife that way. And she's like,
well, because she was, he invited her because he thought this was his crowning moment in Hollywood, and he wanted her there, even though they weren't together.
Yeah, she was a part of his
so and then for him to say, my wife, I think that surprised her. And then it was a ripple effect.
But none of that matters when it triggers violence. I mean, at the end of the day, like Will hit Chris.
And I think she sort of felt like she was the heavy. If you watch Will's acceptance speech, he says, as he's crying, he says the things we do for love, as if that's what he was doing.
That's why protecting her. It kind of puts it on her. Yeah, it kind of did.
To this day, I saw that when it first started, like she said, I thought it was a bit.
We all did.
I thought, okay, he's coming up to
classic Will.
People were texting me, and I'm like, oh no, it's all.
She'll add a lot more context to this conversation tonight. There's a lot of the details. This was kind of like just a little tease, but there's a lot more coming up in our Jada story. That's tonight at 8/7 Central, right here on NBC.
All right. Just a little bit of information coming from NBC pertaining to this interview with Hoda. Let's hear what she has to say to People cover story. Thank you for joining me. So the eye roll was because they haven't called each other husband and wife, but Chris and the public did not know that. And as this guy says, still doesn't warrant you slapping him. Now, there's still people who agree that he should have slapped the man in public for disrespecting his wife. Some say he didn't know about the alopecia. I can't say he knew because I don't know what's in the man's head, what he did and did not know pertaining to her hair loss.
Share all of this and not also share some breadcrumbs along the way of how I got through these challenges, even if it's not exactly how someone else will get through. just having that little glint of light at the end of the tunnel, whatever somebody else's tunnel might be, you know, just I felt like that was really important, specifically when I was talking about my depression, when I was talking about my suicidal thoughts, even in talking about the difficulties, you know, in my marriage, right? And because these are universal. And so I really wanted the opportunity to share with people just some of the remedies and elixirs that I found along the way.
Jada Pinkett Smith is ready to talk. In her new memoir, Worthy, the 52-year-old movie star opens up about the highs and lows of her life, including her difficult upbringing in Baltimore.
I had young parents, and I had parents that were addicted to drugs. And, you know, there is something to be said when you aren't the priority of your parents. Then you don't know how to be a priority to yourself. You don't know how to create healthy boundaries, to create healthy relationships. Our parents are not responsible for, you know, our wholeness, but just in regards to having the understanding that, you know, to be able to see that reflection in your parents' eyes, for them to be your mirror as a young child, that parents don't have to be perfect, but to just always remind you that you are lovable and you're worthy. And it starts with being a priority, right? And so not having that foundation, you know, as I would come to find out as way into my adulthood, you know, had some really strong effects in regards to how I saw myself that I was not aware of. When I was coming up, the drug dealers were the ones that had affluence. The drug dealers were the ones that had money, right? So that's what we readily saw as success, you know? And so for me, considering my circumstances at the time, you know, my mother was not doing well. She was a high functioning heroin addict, but nonetheless, we didn't have the things that we should have. Like the home we lived in was not taken care of. Even though I always had a regular job, I just wanted more financial freedom, you know, also out of the fear of like, what if something does happen to my mother? What if my mother does die? What if she doesn't come home one night? You know, either overdosed, arrested, whatever. And so I decided to sell drugs. I decided to sell crack cocaine. And, you know, just along the way, just kind of leveled up. And that was my solution at that particular time to survive. And it helped me survive, you know. But it put me into a lot of danger and I hurt a lot of people along the way. When I first came out to LA, it was robust with opportunity. It was like Blackness on screen was gold. You know what I mean? It was like the Black talent was kind of like the new thing. It was like it was so many of us with so much talent that Hollywood was now ready to give opportunity to. You had Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you had Martin, you had Keenan Ivory Wayans with In Living Color. It was like Hollywood was ready to give us opportunity to express our creativity. And we took it by the horns.
With her career on the rise, Jada's personal life also started making headlines after she got swept off her feet by a hot young actor named Will Smith in 1994.
I'd run into Will a million times, and he really tried it for years. And I didn't even recognize that, right? And we had gone out with friends of ours maybe a year before, and he was divorcing. And he calls me and he says, hey, I'm in Baltimore now. I'm leaving LA. I've bought a house, a farmhouse in Baltimore. I'm renovating it. I'm leaving. I'm in Baltimore overseeing, the renovations. And he says, are you seeing anybody now? And I'm like, no. He's like, good. You seeing me? I was like, oh. I had to clutch my pearls. I was like, that kind of assertiveness can be a little sexy, And so I was like, oh, wow. And he's like, hit me when you get to LA. Click. And I was like, well, okay. And so when I got to LA, I called him and we went out, and I haven't been able to get rid of him since.
Join AARP.
Sorry about that. So he was assertive, and that's how they came to be. Very interesting.
Rid of him since. When we were younger, one thing that I knew was that it was very important for us to have a friendship that had real deal, thorough communication. To say at 25 and 28 years old in Tinseltown that till death do us part, and you think that there is not going to be, straying eyes. To me, that just wasn't, that didn't seem realistic at all. And this is where it gets complex. As time went on, there are different stages in my marriage where Will and I decided we were not together, where we didn't tell the public, right? Where I was actually thinking about divorcing, separating. I mean, there have been several of those, right? And so, and where we've gone and lived our separate lives. So I think within that is where people might have thought that, oh, they must be having an open relationship. And we just didn't want people to know the dynamic of what was happening between us. We didn't think that that was anybody else's business. And so I think that that's where sometimes that confusion came in. Transparency is just about having communication, right? And so it's like, let's talk about it. Let's work through it together. Let's be in partnership. Let's not keep each other in the dark. And I think that all relationships, if you're talking about being, and this is just for me personally, if you're talking about being with somebody forever, it's like, for me, having the emotional maturity to understand what it is to be human and what it is to make a commitment like that, that takes work. And so at the end of the day, I wanted us to keep our friendship in and just be able to have just open dialogue, and we, trust me, and I that is not for the faint at heart. I'm gonna tell you straight up, it's not. It is not for the faint at heart, but I do believe that is why Will and I are still today married.
No topic is off limits as she details going through serious struggles with her mental health.
When I turned 40, I hit a huge wall. I mean, just a massive amount of depression while I was living a life. I was really living the dream, and so people knew around me that I was very unhappy. They couldn't really figure out why. I was so miserable. I was in so much pain, and I couldn't figure a way out besides death. And so I started looking for places, cliffs where I could have an accident. Because I never wanted suicide. I didn't want my kids to think that their mother had committed suicide. So I spent time doing that. And then once I had a plan, I felt more at ease to just go, okay, I got a plan now. I mean, as morbid as that might sound, once I had a plan, I felt like that was something to hang on to, right? And then from there, luckily, as I talked about it in the book, I was introduced to plant medicine that actually helped me get through those thoughts so that I would never have to have them again. And so when Jaden came to me that day, and he's like, Mom, you got it. Moises and Mateo, their dad, he had this experience. I need you to come in here and listen. I'm like, I'm there. What is it? And Jada's the kind of person that he's not bringing me into something that he doesn't feel like is really something. You know what I mean? He's not like frivolous in that way with me. And so the plant medicine ayahuasca helped me see the unhealthy, self-harming thoughts about myself. And it opened up a whole new world for me, a whole new world of healing that I'm so grateful for. So Jaden talks about how I introduced him to psychedelics. He introduced me to psychedelics.
Wow.
Fact check, yeah. Well, I talk about it in the book, the little gurus. I think what they've taught me collectively is that deep sense of self-acceptance. Like my kids, they love every part of me. You know, they love every part of the journey. I mean, they are just such beautiful beings in that way. You know, just the level of love, unconditional love that they have for me and their dad. And, you know, it's one thing to want to be the person that gives that unconditional love, right? And then there's to be the recipient of that unconditional love just creates a whole nother understanding and a whole nother learning that comes with that. And so I've really been able to feel what that feels like, to have that level of deep unconditional love from those three beauties.
Well, I'm glad she said 3, because I'm sure he would have felt left out if she had only spoke of the 2 children, giving her unconditional love. Very interesting.
Jada is finally ready to discuss the shocking incident at the 2022 Oscars between Will and Chris Rock.
The holy slap, the holy joke.
But there's an even more complicated history behind it all.
Something that you do say in the book that Chris did ask you out.
Oh yeah, that was after the many different, I think every summer all the reports would come out that me and Will were getting a divorce, and Chris he thought that we were getting a divorce. So he called me and he was like, hey, you know, basically he was like, I'd love to take you out. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, aren't you and Will getting a divorce? And I was like, no. I was like, Chris, those are just rumors. He's like, oh my, I mean, he was appalled, you know what I mean? And he profusely apologized, you know, and that was that.
Then, 6 years before the headline-making moment, Rock hosted the Academy Awards and made several jokes about the couple who had boycotted the ceremony after no actors of color were nominated.
You know, I think that there might be some misunderstanding between Chris and I as far as the 2016 Oscars. I think that he might have taken offense, and which I meant no harm in offending. If, you know, that wasn't my intention. But I do think that there's a big misunderstanding there. And I talk about it in the book and saying that and not really recognizing the level of pressure he might have been under, that I probably should have called him and gone, hey, are you okay? And just know that, you know, although
but you didn't.
I'm speaking out about the Oscars, I do wish you the best. And I just want you to know that, you know, me taking the time to have called him and said that just to touch base, but his feelings might have been hurt. And Chris did call me. He did call me afterwards. After the 2016, we had a communication and he apologized. And I apologized to him as well. So I actually thought that we were good, you know, that the hatchet was buried between us and we hadn't talked since then until 2022 came. I thought it was a skit. Like from where I was sitting, you couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that it didn't look like Will hit Chris. Because number one, I'd seen Will in the boxing ring with pro fighters, and Will's a heavy hitter. So when Chris moved, it looked like he ducked or, you know, he missed the shot. And when he continued to stand, and then when he continued to walk down to the end of the stage, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that Will hit him, right? And it wasn't until Will started to walk back to the chair to his chair that I even realized that it wasn't a skit, right? And so yeah, I was in as much of a fog as anybody else in that room that night. I just remember when Chris came down to the end of the stage and tried to apologize to me. He said, I didn't mean you any harm. Any desire to talk to Chris? I would say that, you know, here's my desire. I just hope that all the misunderstanding around this can be cleared up, you know, and that there can be peace.
All right, everybody, that's the said commentary. So he did try to apologize because that's the whole point of forgiveness is for somebody to reach out to the other party. So she never reached out to him thereafter, but he did try to say something to her at the Oscars. And I do believe she mentioned it earlier in the commentary with Hoda. Will was not pleasing of that said information. Wow. What a hot mess. What a hot mess. I'm going to read you a little bit of information pertaining to this union or separated union. One moment, please. Thank you for joining me. You're now listening to The Vault XL. All right, everybody. I'm going to bring you commentary pertaining to what has been said to Hoda. Also, what she's written in her book called Worthy that will be released to the public on Tuesday. And what Chris Rock has to say pertaining to her speaking about him. He is not pleased pertaining to what she has to say. So it's the first on my database. I'm going to go ahead and read what Chris Rock has to say pertaining to her speaking out now about this incident from last year. Thank you for joining me. Chris Rock is deeply frustrated at being dragged into Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith's ongoing marital dramas, with insiders claiming he would prefer if the actress kept his name out of her mouth as she continues to promote her tell-all book, The comedian 58 was famously slapped across the face by Will live on stage at last year's Oscars after he made a G.I. Jane joke about Jada's bald head not long after she revealed she was suffering from alopecia. Now the stand-up comic has been dragged back into their troubled relationship after the girl strip actress 52 claimed Chris once asked her out on a date when she and Will were previously at the center of divorce rumors. Chris has said his piece on the entire Will Smith slap. But now, with these new revelations from Jada that her and Will have been living separate lives, it is just another what the F moment in the whole saga from these past few years between Chris, her, and Will, a source exclusively told DailyMail.com. Chris hates that she keeps bringing it up and bringing up the other revelations about Chris asking her on a date and all of that. He is a relatively private person. It was just getting to a point where people may have started to move on, but now it's back in the limelight, and it's just frustrating that everything is coming back to the forefront. The insider added, Chris is over it and would actually love for her to keep his name out of her damn mouth. Will told Chris to keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth before going on to win Best Actor for his role in King Richard that night. Representatives for Chris, Jada, and Will did not respond to repeated requests for comment. Jada, who said she was shocked that he had referred to her as his wife, claimed that after Chris cracked a joke, he leaned over to her to apologize, which infuriated Will even further, explaining the fallout. She said, Will's still talking because now he's mad because Chris is talking to me. And I go, Chris, this is about some old SHIT. That's all I could think to say. It's not him whatsoever. Chris' annoyance comes after he was pictured for a second time in Paris in the wake of the fallout from Jada's two explosive interviews. The comic, dressed in a brown sweater, cream pants, appeared to be in deep conversation on his phone as he walked through the Capitol. Jada revealed she quietly separated from Will 7 years ago and claimed Chris had once called her up to shoot his shot. I think every summer all the reports would come out that me and Will were getting a divorce, Jada told People. And this particular summer, Chris, he thought that we were getting a divorce. Okay. So he called me and basically he was like, I'd love to take you out. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, aren't you and Will getting a divorce? I was like, no, Chris, those are just rumors. He was appalled and he profusely apologized. And that was that. Jada also addressed the Oscar slap, revealing she hasn't spoken with Chris since. Do I have any desire to talk to Chris? Here's my desire, as you just heard in this audio from People. I just hope that all the misunderstanding around this can be cleared up and that there can be peace, she told the publication. I talk about this in the book. I think that there might be some misunderstanding between Chris and I as far as the 2016 Oscars. I think that he might have taken offense, which I meant no harm in offending. That wasn't my intention, but I do think that there's a big misunderstanding there. Back in 2016, Jada called for a boycott of the awards ceremony after no actors of color were recognized in the major categories. Chris, who was hosting, made jokes about Jada in his opening monologue, telling the audience, Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited. He claimed in his Netflix special earlier this year that the Gotham actress had insisted he quit the gig in a show of solidarity. Jada shocked fans this week when she laid bare the truth about her relationship with Will, who she married in 1997. Speaking with Hoda on the Today Show on Wednesday, she explained why their union broke down, divulging, by the time we got to 2016, we were just exhausted with trying. I think we were both still stuck in our fantasy of what we thought the other person should be. Jada, who admitted in 2020 that she had an affair with singer August Alsina, said she considered a legal divorce but could never go through with it, candidly revealing that she made a promise to her husband that she would never give him a reason to get divorced. Let me repeat that. She made a promise to her husband that she would never give him a reason to get divorced. Now, I could have sworn it was like, she never had a reason to divorce him. But you cheating with another man, I would think would give a person pause to possibly want to be divorced. I'm just saying. We will work through whatever, she added, and I just haven't been able to break that promise. But you still live separately, Hoda probed, prompting Jada to confirm we live separately. In a separate interview with People, which I just played you that audio as well, she admitted they were in fact living separately when her husband slapped Chris at the Oscars. Very interesting. She also noted that no permanent decisions have been made about the future of their marriage, explaining that she and Will are still figuring it out. We've been doing some really heavy-duty work together, she said. We just got deep love for each other, and we're going to figure out what that looks like. The couple are parents to son Jaden, 25, and Willow, 22. I'm trying to figure out, what can you figure out? I know, as you heard on today's show, that many people are living this type of lies. They're lying to the public that they are together, but they're not. They do different things. They don't go to places together. They don't spend time together, separate events. And we've seen this with many people in the community. You'll see the wife out alone without the husband, vice versa. And you're asking yourself, why? Why continue to stay married? And I believe a lot of people are just, I feel like, waiting on the bank, waiting on maybe one to pass away, get some money, 401, insurance. I'll say that because why not be happy? To me, happiness is first. And you also hear this commentary of her being depressed in 2010 or 2011 or so, suicidal, wanting to find a cliff to drive off. That's deep. Did she ever get help for that? She mentions taking psychedelics, her son being the reason she took them, or he introduced them to her. That's not something I think a person should even say. So that's why I want to ask that question, this question. Jada Pinkett Smith, did you ever seek therapy alongside the plant-based drug that you chose of choice? And are you still taking those drugs? What is the purpose of walking out in public to events when you actually don't even have a relationship together? You're not even living in the same house. I think this is mind-blowing information. And it confirms what people obviously were thinking, that they were living an open life. But you are living an open life once you decide to bed another person. You see, it's one thing to live separately and be still in the same house. You're not coexisting. Or you're just, let's say you're just there, rather. But to then go put your luggage and things in a different house, room, hotel, that's totally different. And what's even more mind-boggling about this scenario is that you all are showing up to events as if you are actually married and happy and living together, or let's just say living together. That is very fraudulent. And of course, you're entitled to do as you see fit because you are two adults. Some people have made comments, leave them alone, they're grown, let them do what they want to do. You are entitled to do as you see fit. But you can't say you're living the truth if you're not really truthful. And people just expect people to just be truthful. Hey, we don't live together. We're still married, but we don't live together. She's also made commentary about this deep, how can I word this? Healing. How can you heal and say, I ain't worried about who he's messing with. We don't talk about it, rather. Well, then how are you going to heal? Because don't you think you might want to ask what he may see in this woman, if indeed he's messing with a woman or you're messing with a man? Hey, what do you like about him? What does he like about you? What don't you like about him? What drew you to him? Did he ask her that about August Alsina? Because I could see a man asking, what is it about him that you chose him? Vice versa. You like what about him? His youthfulness. He was young at the time, handsome, smell good. What? You think a man wouldn't be curious? Because you know a woman would be curious to why a man was attracted to a woman. You also hear her talk about in their 20s, 25, 28-year difference of eye strain. So let's ask that question. Jada, whose eye was straying in the relationship when you all were in your 20s? Late 20s. Was it you looking at men or he was looking at women or vice versa? Were you all cheating then in your early 20s or mid 20s, let's say? Who was the first to cheat to one's knowledge? When you say there's no reason to get a divorce, but one would say there's no reason to stay together either because you're really not coexisting together. You're not even in the same house, so there's no coexisting. It's not even like living in a house and nobody's speaking to one another, touching each other, complimenting one another, having sexual relations, sharing dreams, hopes, commentary. We've seen the video of him basically telling you to get the camera out of his face, stop filming when you were pulling out your camera to film, going live. And obviously you didn't get his permission. And he seemed perturbed about that. That was a couple years ago. He didn't like you filming him. Did you do that often? The table talk show you had, Facebook, Red Table Talk. Did he want to talk about what happened with August Alsina, or you asked him, or you pleaded, or was it a mutual agreement to even talk about the relationship? I'm curious. It's a lot to dissect with this information of this living a separate life. The joke of the G.I. Jane comments, was this personal from Chris Rock because of her asking him to not do the Oscars many years ago? Did he take it personal? I'll take a jab at her. Did he write the joke? Because we know comedians can write the jokes, and sometimes somebody else can write the jokes and they just rehearse the jokes, spit them off their tongue, but they didn't orchestrate the joke. So did Chris Rock orchestrate that G.I. Jane joke? Her rolling her eyes is now her saying, I'm shocked because Will called me his wife. Keep my wife's name out of your mouth. So everybody's thinking that she rolled her eyes at the joke, because it depends on where you saw it from the camera, because, you know, they had thousands of cameras in the room. Now we learn a year later, oh, she's rolling her eyes at her own damn husband because he's called her his wife when they haven't been calling each other husband and wife. Very interesting information. And now we have to ask the ultimate question. Jada, why are you just now coming out telling the world about you two not living in the same house, haven't been living in the same house? This issue with Chris Rock years ago, because you wanted to boycott the Oscars because no African-American people were nominated for any major roles. Naturally, he had a job to do. I'm thinking he signed a contract with the Academy. How could he bail out? Do you think it was actually necessary for him not to attend and perform his role just because he's a black man and nobody black was nominated? Because naturally, if they've already paid him, cut the check, he'd have to give that money back. They'd want that money back. So they won't now. Was it that serious? That's all I'm asking. I'm not passing any judgment on this scenario, but I'm forming a question to her. You also hear that he tried to apologize that night, and that infuriated Will Smith even more after the slap. So he did try to make amends of what he said about her. But as I said, was this all personal? Did he know she had alopecia? Did he write the joke? Did he try to offend her? She also apologizes in this commentary that you've heard this evening about whatever happened back in 2016, that she didn't try to offend him. But I guess her expectations of him not working the Oscars as the host. This is just a misunderstanding between people. What is the truth about this relationship, this alleged dynamic between she and Will Smith? Telling Chris Rock, it's not about you. I think most of us probably already knew that. He accepts the award later, Mr. Smith, telling the audience what you do for love. Well, what you chose to do, because nobody put a gun to your head, Mr. Smith, to slap a grown man on a public platform in front of thousands of viewers in the arena and millions of viewers who are watching at home. It was a choice. Now, as I said, many people may agree with the slap. He disrespected his wife, as he should have done. Then some people are like, that wasn't the time or the place. It's not that serious. It's just a joke. And then we think about all the nasty jokes, vile jokes that people have told at the Oscars and other places. Nobody just jumped up and ran and slapped the host comedian, woman comedian, for spinning a nasty joke. Come on now, let's be serious. And you heard Chris Rock brothers say he wish a MF would walk up on him and slap him while he's on stage talking about somebody. Of course, because that's a comedian's job, is to poke fun. You don't know if it's really personal or not. The people they're talking about, they got a problem with this person or that person because it's just a joke, remember? Or is it? Why haven't these people spoke again? Why hasn't she reached out to Chris Rock? Why hasn't Chris reached out to him to say, I'm sorry, I apologize. That's not my nature. That ain't me. Because you hear the wife saying it, but you don't hear it from Will Smith. saying, that's not my nature. Maybe it really is his nature. He just hasn't acted out, or he has acted out, but not publicly. Stay woke now. Because what I do in public, I may not necessarily do behind closed doors, or vice versa. I act a donkey's ass at home, but when I step outside, I'm this nice, mild-mannered guy. Don't raise my voice. I don't act a fool. So are we talking about a guy who does get crunk at home, Mr. Will Smith? Talks crazy, cuss, act a fool, but he contains himself when he's out in the public. I hear Hippie in the audience saying she feels like that Miss Jada is manipulative. Hippie, that's why I wanted you to come up on the panel to tell me why you feel this way about Jada. What is it about her character that makes you think she's manipulative? Her wanting to kill herself years ago. Why? What was so terrible about her life that she wanted to take her own life? I'm curious. Help me understand, Jada. What was so bad about your life in 2011 that you wanted to kill yourself, drive off a cliff, or crash your car? But you didn't want your kids to know that the mother killed herself, so you changed your mind. Very interesting. What was the dynamic of the separation? Because you all are still separated. And you felt like you didn't owe anyone an explanation, as you said in the commentary. It was no one's business. You two have not been considered husband and wife in a while. Very interesting. And Chris Rock basically told you he didn't mean any harm by anything said. You all have been apart since 2016. You were baffled once again when your husband said, don't talk about my wife. And you felt like, well, what? You were baffled because of why? But you two hadn't been together, living in a whole relationship in a house together. We also learned that you were already split separately from Mr. Will Smith when you started your entanglement with August Alsina. And look how that turned out. Very nasty once the little boy decided to cry wolf and run and tell all your business. So what I want to know is, you're so concerned about healing, you can't really explain the dynamic of why you two separated. Well, how did cheating help? Help me understand. How is cheating with another man or men going to help you find out what in the hell is wrong with your marriage, why you're unhappy, this deep unhappiness you had 12 years ago? Are you still unhappy? Are you still miserable? Are you still depressed? You claim you were very miserable. Your friends couldn't figure out why you were miserable. So why were you miserable? What was the problem then, Jada Pinkett Smith? You got a plan together. You started using these plants. So as I said, were you seeing a therapist while you were imbibing this plant medicine? It has helped you with those thoughts, those bad thoughts. Do you still have those bad thoughts now? Currently taking psychedelics, are you or not? Have you put them to the side, or are you still taking them? You say your kids love every part of you. Unconditional love for you and the dad. And Chris is agitated that his name has come back up about him asking you out. And he only asked allegedly because he thought you two were divorcing, because naturally people do gossip. But he profusely apologized to you. And then, as you said, things went awry. 2022, 6 years later. You didn't think that your husband had hit him that night, because you've seen him hit fighters before, and it didn't appear to be that he hit him. Chris didn't fall over. Well, maybe Chris has a strong jaw. I don't know. thought it was a skit until he walked down the stage, and you realize, no, this was not a skit. I think your husband's been angry a long time. That's what I believe. I believe Will Smith has been angry with you a long time. I don't know what the hell is going on in your marriage. Don't know why you decided to take up with this young guy, be out with him publicly. I don't understand how you could be living in a separate house and not think somebody would find out. That's strange to me. Now, we understand it's nobody's business, but I'm just saying, if you're trying to put on the facade and act like, well, it's nobody's business what we're going through, how long are you going to keep living the facade and living in a separate house? I'm just trying to understand, what is the point in keep living separately year for year for year? And I'm sure there are some people who are actually married, talk on the phone, meet up to have sex, but they live in separate houses. As they say, to each his own. I'm just saying, for me, I wouldn't see the point in staying married. If I'm going to live separately, we're going to sleep in different houses, we're going to meet up occasionally, what is the point? Now, will we hear from Mr. August Alsina? Will he have something he has to say about this? Because it seems that people come out once people start speaking. Don't you find it very interesting that her book comes out this week, and it's right after the arrest of Keffe D, who's the orchestrator allegedly of the murder of Tupac Shakur. We also hear that she's giving commentary about Tupac as well, that they had a kiss and realized they weren't for each other. She didn't feel any type of chemistry with Mr. Tupac, and that was that. This was one day at her home while they were on the back porch. She just told him, come on, do it. You know you want to, whatever. He did it. And then she felt nothing. But we also learned that Will Smith had a problem with Tupac. Their friendship. Maybe he felt like the man did like her, was attracted to her. Maybe he was. I don't know. There's also a rumor that Tupac proposed to her while he was incarcerated. Is that true? Are you the orchestrator of that rumor, Miss Jada Pinkett Smith? I think some people may feel like you're only selling this information and revealing all this stuff because you had a book to promote, and this was the release date coming up Tuesday. And I just think everything has an interesting timing. Arrest of this killer of Tupac. You start talking about your relationship with Tupac, which I'm sure Mr. Will Smith doesn't want to hear. Then you're promoting a book. Just the timing is interesting. So Chris Rock is looking at it like, well, I don't want you talking about me. Maybe he feels like you're mentioning this slap to promote your book. Are you? I think it's a combination of all of the above. One thing begets another. Keffe D gets arrested. Now you get to talk about your relationship with Tupac, what he did, didn't do, your conversations with him, alleged conversations, dealings. Promote your book, the month of October. Do an interview with various entities pertaining to the book, what you talk about in the book about your life and your husband, Tupac, and whatever else. It's one thing begets another, because that's usually what happens. You promote a book, people want you to come on and talk about what you talked about in the book. So whatever happened in your life recently, you're going to discuss it. So naturally, the slap is going to be something discussed because you were there when Will slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars last year. But Chris Rock is like, I don't want to hear about it. It's a year old, ain't talking to nobody, I don't want to keep hearing about it. And I get that. But she's promoting a book. So naturally, she's going to, as I just said, go to different platforms to discuss the book, what's in the book, and assumingly the slap would be in the book, Mr. Chris Rock. Very interesting. They have been criticized over the years for their child-rearing tactics, child-rearing styles. Some have not agreed with their method of child-rearing. How do some of you feel about how they've reared their children, how differently their children act? And we know that children can turn out a multitude of ways, depending depending on how the parents raised them. It is what it is. Everybody's child is not going to turn out the same. As we see here, everyone's parent isn't going to act the same as somebody else's parent. What does Will Smith have to say pertaining to the memoir of this new book, Worthy? Will Smith has responded for the first time to Jada Pinkett Smith's revelations in her new memoir, Worthy, which she is heavily promoting in the media and is out on Tuesday. Smith sent the New York Times an email saying the book's revelations kind of woke him up. He said that Pinkett Smith was more resilient, clever, and compassionate than he understood and had lived a life on the edge more than he realized. Very interesting. When you've been with someone for more than half of your life, a sort of emotional blindness sets in, Smith wrote, according to the Times article published Saturday, and you can all too easily lose your sensitivity to their hidden nuances and subtle beauties. Pinkett Smith said their relationship is still being defined and the couple would not divorce. I think by the time we got to 2016, we were just exhausted with trying, the Girl Trips actress said, referring to the state of their union. I think we were both kind of just still stuck in our fantasy of what we thought the other person should be. So what was the fantasy? What did he or she not live up to the other one's expectations? I'm curious. I made a promise that there will never be a reason for us to get a divorce. Okay, see, she said that. There would never be a reason for us to get a divorce. But then in the other article I just read you, it states, I would never give him a reason to divorce me. So which one was it? Because I think sleeping around would definitely make a person rethink their union with you. What am I not doing? Why are they with that person? So has Will Smith cheated on his wife as well? I'd like to know. We will work through whatever, she continued, and I just haven't been able to break that promise. And that's a little short article. So basically, Will is just basically saying you become emotionally blind when you've been with a person a long time, and you all too easily lose your sensitivity to their hidden nuances and subtle beauties. He said she's more resilient, clever, and compassionate than he'd understood and had lived a life on the edge more than he realized. What does that mean, Will Smith? She lived on the edge how? Lived on the edge before you met her or during the marriage or both? Help the queen understand. You lost sensitivity to what exactly? Things that she was desiring, new way of living, talking, or did you just become complacent, which a lot of people do in relationships? You get used to people being around, you start to take them for granted. So did either one take the other one for granted? What are they talking about here? I don't know. I have no idea what they are speaking of. Trying to bring you all the latest information pertaining to these two individuals. Let's see if I've got something else pertaining to their relationship. Trying to bring you most of it. But tune into NBC where you can get the full interview with Hoda and Miss Jada Pinkett Smith pertaining to their relationship. Now, I'll bring you some more information. What the public has to say pertaining to the secret life of these two. When Jada Pinkett Smith revealed that she and her husband, Will Smith, have been separated, living completely different lives for 7 years, internet shock ensued. Fans began replaying clips from the duo's public appearances over the years, looking for signs that show they were putting on an act, with some saying that their behavior was embarrassing. On The View, co-host Anna Navarro said that she believed Pinkett Smith revealed the news now as a tactic to sell more copies of her upcoming memoir, Worthy. Wow, that's a deep accusation. Meanwhile, others defended the duo, suggesting the decision to keep their relationship private for so long showed that they care deeply about each other. Well, is it that they care about each other or they just didn't want to be scrutinized and judged? Some may say she only stayed around because of the money. He's made a lot of money making movies. He's usually the leading role in movies. That's a comfortable life for someone, even while living in another house. Stay woke. Now imagine that. He's a main bread maker and she's living in a separate damn house. Stay woke now. Is it about the money? Because we know a lot of people stay in relationships because of the children. The husband won't divorce because he doesn't want to pay child support, which makes no damn sense. You're still going to be responsible for the children either way under age of 18 and 21. The wife's accustomed to a certain lifestyle. She don't want to give up that lifestyle even though she's miserable as hell. And she admits this. She was miserable. So what was the real reason that they stayed together? Because to keep saying there was no reason. Well, one would say that doesn't make any sense, what you're saying. Because you've lived a separate life. You've admitted to wanting to kill yourself. And you also took up with another man. So there was obviously something terribly wrong in your marriage. Because once you decide to step out of the marriage, be in public with a person and still married, then go live in a whole separate house, I say you have a lot going on. And then people are going to say, damn, does it take 10, 11 years to work it out, to decide, and still living separately while coming out now telling the whole truth? Though the internet seems to be divided on the high-profile couple's secrecy, it's clear that their strategy has been working for their relationship. Tammy Nelson, a couples therapist and author of The New Monogamy, told The Insider, they basically took the power back and said, it's really nobody's business to tell us how to live or if we're doing this the right way or the wrong way. Nelson said in her case, not telling the public was important. Nelson, who hasn't treated Pinkett Smith or Smith, said that choosing to withhold private relationship information from others isn't necessarily a sign of deception or that a couple is ashamed of their relationship. Rather, keeping certain details under wraps can be a way to protect what matters most to two partners, such as their children's privacy, their respect for each other, and their desire to live freely, even if that means defying norms of monogamy and traditional marriage, Nelson said. Now, I would agree with some of that. Nobody's business, protecting their parents' privacy, children's privacy. Of course, their children are grown now. To live freely. Maybe it's more about the living freely. I do what the hell I want. Nobody has to know I desire other men. I fancy other men. I fancy other women. Yeah, I still love this lady. I still love this guy. But it's not enough right now. I need more. I'm craving more. I've been with this person a long time. I want to see what it's like to do something else. You hear a lot of men say that. I like to test the waters. I like a different woman. I've heard a lot of men say that about women. It's not very nice, but to each his own. Some people want to fancy, desire others. They want to sample the candy bag. Today I want a Reese's cup. Tomorrow I want Skittles. You see where I'm going. But what you have to ask yourself is, how much sampling are you going to do when you get to a certain age? Because it's really not a good look at the age of 40, 50. You're still sampling different candies in the bag. How many Skittles can you eat? You see where I'm going. How many Reese's cups can you eat? At some point, your tummy might start to get full, if you see where I'm going with this. Now, we have men who live this way. They don't want a commitment. And some are actually married in relationships, but they really aren't committed to the other party. So this is when people would say, well, damn, why not just vacate the premises? And then you'll hear that age-old, but I love her. I love him. But do you? Because now we have to ask, what is your definition of love? Since Pinkett Smith revealed their 7-year separation, there's been plenty of speculation about certain highly publicized moments throughout the years, like Smith slapping Chris Rock after making a joke about Pinkett Smith's alopecia, and Pinkett Smith saying she had an entanglement with singer August Alsina. Fans have also recirculated a 2017 clip of Pinkett Smith on Watch What Happens Live, where she offers a vague response when host Andy Cohen asks about how she and Smith keep their marriage hot. I don't know. I mean, I'm baffled, really, Pinkett Smith says in the clip. See, one would scrutinize that. Well, what do you mean baffled? You're baffled at what? You all are still together, but living in separate houses, but nobody knows? Because that don't really sound too good. Because I played that here in this live stream. Please go back to the beginning of the live to get that said audio. I don't know. She couldn't answer. You can't answer why you're still married and how you keep it hot, how you keep the marriage hot. Maybe she couldn't answer because the marriage wasn't hot. On X, some people speculated whether these moments were deceptive stunts or cover-ups for a larger relationship problem, and others called Pinkett Smith a liar and self-absorbed. Is she a liar? Is she self-absorbed, everybody? Right now, it's impossible to say their motivations for these behaviors or why Pinkett Smith decided to share their separation so many years into it. Regardless of the reasons, the duo's decision shows they value integrity and their commitment to each other, Nelson told Insider. Well, is there integrity here? Let's ask that question. I think I'll put that on the poll. Because someone say, how's there integrity when you're sleeping around with other people? Now, I can't say that they are actually sleeping around with other people right now, but we do know of her indiscretion with a young man, a younger man, a few years back. And really, how does he feel, Will Smith? Because I read his commentary, but does he really want this information out? Does he really want people to know that they're living separate lives? They have not been truthful with everyone about being together? Because you have to admit, it does look fraudulent to keep showing up to events and you don't even live together. Come on now. I'm all for you doing whatever you want to do, because in the end, I don't pay your bills, you don't pay mine. But I don't think I want to go meet anybody in public to go to a function, award ceremony, and all that, when me and my husband, we're not even living together, but we show up in nice, fancy clothes. Think about that. That's really fraudulent when you break it down. Because it's one thing to live separately, and you do your thing, I do mine. I show up at the awards by myself, you show up at the awards by yourself. Yeah, because you knew people would talk. So you can't really say they weren't worried about what people think. So integrity is not really a word I would use, Miss Nelson, in describing Smith and Smith. Even if Pinkett Smith and Smith told lies or half-truths to keep their relationship status under wraps, it's possible that they didn't have another choice if they wanted to protect their dynamic while also staying true to themselves and their evolving needs and desires, Nelson said. That's so funny you would use the word dynamic, because that's the same word that Jada used to describe the separation. To her, their move is a sign they both have integrity. Well, I had already said that. Or the ability to be their complete and whole selves in their dynamic, even if it means structuring their relationship in a way that's different than the norm. She said that there's still a lot of societal judgment around marriage separations, which could have led Pinkett and Smith to be tight-lipped over the years in order to avoid unwanted judgment while they prioritize integrity in the marriage. Here we go again, Miss Nelson using the word integrity. And also, it says in this article, marriages change all the time, and you're allowed to keep that private, a therapist says. Yes, you are so true. Self-exploration and acceptance could be another reason that couples like Pinkett Smith and Smith may withhold news of their separation, according to Nelson. She said it's a misconception that there's one right way to be in a marriage or a relationship. In reality, it can take on many forms, like living apart, having outside sexual partners in private, or having other partners in public for the world to see. Just like we each grow through developmental phases into adulthood, where we change as people, our relationships grow and change and develop through different phases, Nelson said. She's seen this in her own work with couples who decide to open their marriages in some capacity. Maybe as a couple who they are individually, they're in a different place now than 7 years ago, Nelson said. Maybe 7 years from now, they'll be somewhere else. Maybe they will be. Pinkett Smith and Smith's tactics, making the intentional choice to adjust their marriage, prioritizing privacy while they figured that out, could be helpful for any couple who feels dissatisfied with traditional monogamy, according to Nelson. Read the original article on The Insider. So, what do you all think about this 7-year itch? Is it an itch? A big old scratch? I don't know. And this therapist is so true. To each his own. Everyone can live how he or she sees fit. Open relationships, private, public. Live together, don't live together. Don't have to tell anybody a damn thing, because we are all grown. And naturally, it's true. When you become famous, you can't tell every little thing that goes bump in the night with your relationship, because that's not good either. Because it's easy for people to throw salt on the wound and also add a little bit of sugar to make a big old mess and make up stuff. Because usually hot gossip begets more gossip. So let's ask this question. Are these two happy? How about that? Are they content with living separately? Obviously they are, because they've been doing it. Do they really want to stay together? Is this just fluff talk? Because the book is coming out and she's got to answer these questions. Naturally, she's going to go on different platforms to discuss the book, Worthy. Will they continue to live apart? How do their children feel about all this information coming out on news platforms? How do they feel about the book being written? How do family friends feel about now learning the whole truth? How many people already knew this information but kept quiet and never told anybody they knew that the two did not live in the same household? Because somebody knew. Believe that. One more article pertaining to this debacle, and I think I'll be done with discussing these two for a little bit until some more shenanigans pops up. Jada Pinkett responds to Hoda Kotb asking a question about Will Smith being gay. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Baganti 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. New York Post is the source. Jada Pinkett Smith let the truth fly Friday in her NBC News primetime special with Hoda Kotb, the 52-year-old girl strip actress, telling all in the promotion for her memoir, Worthy, which hit shelves October 17th, which is on Tuesday. Snippets of the interview shared Thursday, Pinkett Smith revealed she and her husband, Will Smith, 55, have been separated for the past 7 years, even when he told Chris Rock to keep his wife's effing name out of his mouth at the 2022 Oscars. First of all, I'm really shocked because, mind you, I'm not there. We haven't called each other husband and wife in a long time, she told Kotb, 59. And I think this is where the eye roll comes in. She wasn't rolling her eyes at Chris Rock for the G.I. Jane joke. She was rolling her eyes at the comment from Will Smith, which is even more dynamic and baffling. Because that's the whole thing about seeing people do things. You think you know why they did it, and now you learn a year later, that is not why she was rolling her eyes. She ain't been called wifey by her husband. Or did you tell him not to call you wifey, Miss Jada Pinkett Smith? I'm curious. She added she was very confused at the time, saying, I'm really worried for Will because I don't know what's going on. The couple married in 1997, share kids Jaden, 25, Willow, 22, Trey, 30. Will welcomed son Trey, 30, with ex-wife Cherie Zampino. Despite living separately for nearly a decade, Pinkett Smith claims she and the Switch rapper won't be divorcing anytime soon. But the Magic Mike star's full conversation with Kotb revealed even more bombshells. The pair's marriage has been the subject of many rumors, including whether they're in an open marriage, swingers, or one of them is gay. But when Kotb asked her if any of that was true, she denied it. I would say that none of that's true, Pinkett Smith responded. I definitely can understand why there would be misunderstandings, but none of it's true, quote unquote. The reason why Hollywood's power couple won't legally divorce is simple. They don't want to. We don't want to because we love our family and we love each other, Pinkett Smith claimed. You know, it's more of a life partnership. Now, 10 years from now, Hoda, who knows, she laughs, adding the pair currently focus on deep healing rather than letting each other know if they're in other relationships. So see, this is where I got that commentary from, the Hoda Kotb interview. So you want to work on deep healing rather than letting the other one know if they're in another relationship with another human being. Well, as I said earlier, how can you heal if you're not truthfully honest? See, this is where I would call this sugarcoating, Miss Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, you and I are the same age. Now, stop the nonsense. Queen knows game when she sees it and smells it sometimes as well. You can't say you're healing You're working on healing a relationship if you can't even ask the other person, hey, are you involved with another woman, man? He can't ask you? Or is it that neither one of you want to know because you're going to have questions that the other one does not want to answer, as I stated earlier during this live stream? What's the truth? The entire world watching the TV broadcast of the 2022 Oscars saw Smith slap Chris Rock across the face. Pinkett Smith claimed she couldn't see the Independence Day actor make contact with Rock from where she was sitting. It wasn't until the commercial break that Smith's publicist came out and told the duo that the comedian didn't want to press charges against the star. She realized he actually hit him. She claimed neither she nor Smith have spoken to Rock since the slap. Pinkett Smith told Cardiff that Smith asked to be on her Red Table Talk series July 2020 to talk about her affair with rapper August Alsina, 31. So why did Mr. Smith want to go on that show to talk about the relationship? Did he want to vindicate himself? Did he want people to understand where he came from? Did he want to hear her say it out loud in front of a viewing audience that she had slept with another man, and why? Did he feel better after that interview, Mr. Will Smith? Because one is going to say it's now October 23, 3 years later, and you two are still not living in the same damn house together. How could you possibly feel better? I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe he did. How does he feel now? The truth. Over 12 million people watched the episode, and many fans of Smith thought she blindsided and humiliated him by bringing him on. However, the actress told that Smith absolutely knew about a relationship with Alsina before the media scrutiny and recorded sit down. Is that true? That Will Smith knew that she was messing around with August Alsina before she went on a live broadcast to tell the world about her relationship with the young singer. And boy, what a mess was that when everything came out. Pinkett Smith experienced a deep, dark depression in 2011 upon her 40th birthday and had suicidal thoughts. She revealed she made a plan to stage a high-speed car crash along LA's scenic and mountainous Mulholland Drive. I have to be honest about something, Pinkett Smith told Cardiff early in the special. I wanted to call the book at first Unlovable. I feel like that's the journey. We're all trying to figure out how to feel more lovable. Prior to Friday's full NBC News interview, Pinkett Smith swore to Rolling Loud that she and her longtime close friend Tupac Shakur never took things to the next level. But Pinkett Smith did admit that she and Shakur, who was murdered in 1996, kissed one time, just in case. I remember being at my house on Price Avenue on the back porch, and, he was like, we should try that. And I was like, Pop, kiss me. Go ahead, just kiss me. And so he kissed me, and we both pulled back like, what the hell? She recalled with slight disgust. It wasn't for you, Kodak asked about a romance between the pair. Not for either one of us, Pinkett Smith laughed. New York Post is the source. Wow, wow, wow. Now we have information pertaining to the Black internet is dragging Jada Pinkett Smith for filth, but here's why the hate isn't warranted. The root is the source. We knew there would be revelations when Jada Pinkett Smith announced her memoir, but it got real messy real fast. Jada shared that she and her husband Will have been secretly separated since 2016. The revelation sent social media into a tizzy. On TikTok, users are fed up, posting funny and sometimes mean posts, telling Jada to keep Will's name out of her mouth. And on X, formerly Twitter, Black folk are begging to be let out of the Smiths group chat. Wow, interesting. Ryan Davis, a popular social media comedian, has over 300,000 likes on his TikTok video that is titled simply "Leave Us Alone." In the video, Davis unloads on Jada, saying the actress embarrasses her husband. It says that fans didn't need to know that the couple was separated. Conservative personality Candace Owens, oh Lord, not Miss Candace, took to her channel. It jumped off of there. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We got 21 viewing. Well, I don't know what happened to my content. 1 second. Just when I was in the middle, I think these apps don't really like when you're starting to talk about their fans. So some people are not happy that she told the truth. Why is that? I'm curious. Newsbreak's having a actual news break. For some reason, this app does not want to bring the information. Why are some people agitated that the truth came out? Some believe, maybe a few, that this is just to sell the book, since this information was already inside of her memoir. And the fact that she wanted to title it Unlovable, why is that? I'm very curious. I'm trying to find that article. I don't see it. Well, I'm not going to go any further. If you want to find it, it's by the root. Some people are agitated, maybe feel like she's still embarrassing him. So if he doesn't feel embarrassed, then I guess many could say, why should we feel embarrassed for him? But what I'd like to know is, did he want all this revealed? The book? Did he want her to express herself in a book? Because naturally, when you write a book or co-author a book, other platforms are going to invite you to come on to discuss what you wrote about. And then naturally, people are going to have questions. So is he happy about that? Now they have this. Willow Smith shares cryptic message after news of parents' separation. Well, I don't think she would be shocked that her parents were separated. That makes no sense to me, because I would assume a child would know that their parents are not living together. Says she took to her Instagram stories in the wake of the news, reposting a graphic from a yoga expert, Dayal Garanga, as seen as hello, and offered a definition of the word resentment, claiming resentment is literally the experience of feeling something over and over. Resentment. It continued, it's being stuck in a loop. A helpful question to ask myself is, do I want to keep feeling this way? If the answer is no, then I get to remind myself that I can choose to feel differently. It's unclear if her parents' divorce, for all intents and purposes, was a shock to Willow too, or if she's been in the know since she was a teenager. But either way, we could certainly understand the toll it's likely taking on her. Now, naturally, they're not getting a divorce, so I don't know why they're saying parents' divorce in this article. Now it says, though the couple has not filed for legal separation, Jada confirmed it was not a divorce on paper, but it was a divorce when speaking with Hoda Kotb on Wednesday, October 11th. They kept up appearances clearly, but have been living completely separate lives. As for why they kept that on the down low, Jada said they were trying to figure out between the two of us how to be in a partnership in regards to how do we present that to people. We hadn't figured that out. So some would still question that. Why would it take 7 years to figure out how you want to represent yourselves to the public? Because obviously you have to be feeling some type of way to go this long not living together and then now write a book and now explain it on public platforms. I don't know. I really don't understand any of it. Now here's some interesting about her moving out of the house. It's a whole lot of information. Will noted on the show that it occurred after he and Jada decided that we were going to separate for a period of time. This is pertaining to August Alsina. After he pressed her to offer more specific details, she said it was a relationship. I was in a lot of pain and I was very broken. Jada and Will drew controversy over the episode. After it was released, the actress, in pursuit of clarity and emotional sobriety, became what she calls an urban nun of sorts, the New York Times reported, adding that she meditates and reads texts like the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, and the Bible every day, and abstains from sex, alcohol, violent entertainment, and unnecessary spending. Will and Jada married in 1997 and shared 2 children, Jaden Smith, 25, Willow Smith, 22. We wanted to create a family we never had, and we did that, and we enjoy our family, Jada told the New York Times. For us, our marriage is like a cornerstone of that for now. Who knows in 10 years? She continued laughing. We've tried everything to get away from each other, and we just don't. Look back at the photos of Will and Jada over the years, and there is a list of pictures of them together. So what is the problem? Because now we're here, well, they can't leave each other alone. They can't leave. They can't divorce. We do know he would have to pay her a nice little lump sum of money because they have been together a while. I'm assuming he's worth a lot of money. What is the deal between these two? Remember when August Alsina said that Will gave him his blessing? I wonder if that is actually true now that all this is coming out about her being broken and depressed, living separately. And when she did the Red Table Talk, that Will did know of her relationship with Mr. August Alsina before the world knew. It's very interesting. And Will, Mr. Alsina, has something to say pertaining to this book, what's in the book, anything that she has said pertaining to her relationship, her mental state while being entangled with him, and her marriage in general. In June 2020, the I Love the SHIT singer shared in an interview with radio host Angela Yee that the I Am Legend star had sanctioned his headline-making entanglement with Pinkett Smith. I actually sat down with Will and had a conversation due to the transformation from their marriage to life partnership. He gave me his blessing, Alsina claimed at the time. I just can't see that. I'm sorry. I know people live differently. This is an allegation from Mr. Alsina from 3 years ago, but I just can't see a man sitting down, married to a woman, not planning to divorce her, or she divorced him, and he allow a young man to sit at his foot, table, however, seat, chair, and say, okay, thank you for letting me sleep with your wife. I can't see this. I can't see Will doing this. This is strange to me. Even though I don't know Will, but I don't know. This seems strange to me. The No Love Singer 31 said he fell in love with the Girls Trip star 52 during their romance. I totally gave myself to that relationship for years of my life. I brought you this content a few years ago. And I truly, really, really deeply love and have a ton of love for her, he added. And you also will see pictures of the two in this article. I devoted myself to it. I gave my full self to it, so much to the point that I can die right now and be okay with knowing that I truly gave myself to somebody. Soon after I've seen this interview aired, a rep for Pinkett Smith told Page 6 exclusively the R&B star claims were absolutely not true. So see, a rep says it wasn't true. And as I said here, I find it odd, baffling, that a man would give another man consent to be with his wife while he's still married to her. Why? I can only see that if a man was dying, was sick, had a terminal illness, diagnosed with an illness, and felt like, well, I don't want my wife to be unhappy. I want to have some peace of mind, knowing that I possibly won't be living long. Yes, you can be with my wife. This is crazy. However, 2 weeks later, the Red Table Talks co-host admitted on her Facebook show that she did have a romantic relationship with Alsina during a time when she and Smith were separated. Well, let us hear now, you've been separated. So it's not like, oh, we're separated. I went out and had an affair with this younger guy. You were separated still now. So maybe that was the start of it. You all had an issue. You hooked up with this guy. And thereafter, after that relationship disbanded, you still stayed separated from one another. Alsina's interview is now making headlines again as Pinkett Smith announced Wednesday that she and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air star 55 have been quietly separated since 2016. It was not a divorce on paper, but it was a divorce, she explained to NBC News, adding that she and Smith currently live separately. The worthy author then revealed why she and her longtime husband never formally announced their separation. I think just not being ready yet, she told Hold a Copy. Still trying to figure out between the two of us how to be in a partnership, right? And in regard to how do we present that to people, and we hadn't figured that out. Despite their lengthy separation, Pinkett Smith says she is not planning to file for divorce. I made a promise that there will never be a reason for us to get a divorce, she shared. We will work through whatever, and I just haven't been able to break that promise. Jada and Will tied the knot in December 1997 in Maryland. And once again, they have a son, Jaden, 25, a girl child, Willow, 22. And Mr. Smith also has a son, Trey, 30, whom he shares with ex-wife Cherie Zampino. Page 6 is the source of this information if you are curious. I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I'm going to wrap it up like this. And thank you all so much for tuning into this live broadcast. You're entitled to live as you see fit. If you want to move out your home, that's your business. But I will say, with all the things I talk about on this network, such as true crime, you know that sometimes things don't end up like this situation here. There possibly would have been some smoke in the city in somebody else's relationship. As we have been told many times in relationships, when a person decides to leave a man or woman, that's usually when there is violence. So I'm going to say this to Ms. Jada Pinkett Smith. You have been very fortunate to still be breathing. And it's not to say that violence is the answer, but many people do act out once they are told that the other person is leaving, whether it be for 5 minutes or 5 months. Many men act out when their wife say, I'm leaving you. Or the girlfriend says, I'm leaving. I'm not happy. I want to go stay somewhere else. Or I want you to leave. A lot of those women are not here to tell the story. So, Ms. Pinkett, you're very fortunate to even be alive because, as I said, many women were brutally murdered when telling the guy she wanted out of the relationship or wanted a separation or seeing somebody else, however it went. So the fact that you've lived separately for 7 years, I'm going to be truthful, it is a miracle that you all are even still together and one of you is still breathing. Because who's to say that the guy couldn't have acted out in the relationship, the lover, Mr. Alcina, he could have taken it personally. Because when you listen to his words in this commentary, which I've brought to you before, he seemed like he was heavily invested in this relationship with this older woman. And who wants to compete with somebody's spouse once you have fallen in love with them? If indeed it was love. She's married. And I don't think she was thinking of the ramifications of a man falling for her, especially a younger man. And a lot of men are attracted to older women. So imagine this guy being with this woman who's famous, falls in love with her, and not knowing how it's going to end. Well, as you see, allegedly they're not together. He came out, told this business of getting permission from Mr. Smith, and naturally, they've denied it. So now you have to sit here and wonder once again who was telling the truth. See, now it's just going to be a rehashing of old commentary between old lovers, Chris Rock and their debacle about the Oscars from 2016, her wanting him to go along with the boycott if he personally took out a vendetta against her at these 2022 Oscars, making the G.I. Jane joke. Her bringing up now that he once asked her out when he heard that she was divorcing her husband. Then he apologized when she said it wasn't true. It's just hashing out old shit. And I get what Chris is saying. I'm moving on. Done moved on from all that nonsense. Now with her with this book, promoting this book, she feels the need, she has to explain everything from the book on a talk show. So anything that happened with August, Chris, whomever, it's now back on Front Street. And this is why a lot of people don't get to move on from gossip, is because of this very reason. Something happens to where a person starts to talk about the event and you're right back to square one. So it's hard to move on. And I've heard many people say, I won't ever talk about this situation again. And who comes to mind? Tina Turner. She told someone during an interview, this will be the last time I will talk about Ike and myself and what we once had. Don't ask me about him again. And that's how you do it. Because once a person has walked away, fully removed himself or herself, physically and mentally, they have every right not to ever talk about the relationship again, what happened, who said what, who did what. That's the reason why when she was going to court, allegedly, she basically told the judge, I don't want anything from our union together. I just want the damn name Tina. And what did Ike say? I gave her that. See, some people move on. Some do not. What will be the fallout of this book? Will we hear of other revelations that we have not heard pertaining to her relationship with her husband, children, August, Chris Rock, any other entities? Will they decide to move back into a house together? Or will they continue to live separately and show up to public events as if they are happily married? Will this affect their children? The children are grown now. They should be able to adjust to anything that their parents are going through because they now have their own lives to live. They're not like their small children. But that is still, these two, are still their parents. So they're entitled to still feel some type of way about people talking about their parents and whatever comes from this book and her speaking publicly. Many people are shocked because now she's confirmed what people already were suspecting, that there was smoke in the city. They had issues. And I'm going to say for the record, they still have issues in my book. Because to publicly come out and say, we were never living together for so many years, and then to still say presently, we are not living together, is a very, very bad sign to me. It doesn't matter if they are happy with their union, they've accepted the living separately, it's still a sign that something is not right. And for it to go on this long, something still is wrong. Because you would think at this point, the juncture of the road, somebody would have said, hey, are we going to live together or are we just going to continue this? Aren't you tired of this? Don't you want to sit in the same house with me? Don't you want to hear me come through the door at night, morning, whatever? Don't you want to hear me snore? Don't you want me to make you eggs for breakfast or fix you toast in the morning, make you dinner, rub your feet, stroke your hair, make love to you? Don't you miss that? Now you hear in this commentary, she's abstained from many vices of the world. Alcohol, sex, violent content. But is it enough? Because the one thing that wasn't mentioned, have you abstained from love? Jada Pinkett Smith. Because everything's about her. Has it not been that way from the beginning with the rumors pertaining to August Alsina? She was broken. She was upset. She was empty. She was hurt. She's suicidal. She was suicidal. But you don't hear how Will was feeling all of these years. So let's ask that question. Will Smith, how do you feel about being separated from your wife for 7 years? Have you tried to get back with your wife recently? If you did, what was her answer? Will you continue to live this separated life with her? How long do you think you continue living this separate life? Do you two even have any type of sexual relationship? She says she's abstained from all of that. Alcohol, sex. So how is he satisfying his needs? How does she satisfy her urges? Reading, I guess, as she has said. But as I just said, is that enough? I don't know what type of deep healing these two are doing, what each are searching for in each other or outside of each other or in life, but something is off. And as they say, to each its own. But I would think at some point a person would tire of this and just go their separate way. And each could find what it is they're actually looking for in life. And not having to worry about no longer meeting someone's expectation. Because you hear her mention this in this commentary. And maybe that's what has been going on all this time. That what they expected from one another, it never was. As she said, the fairy tale. Maybe she got in and realized this isn't what I wanted, but continue to ride the ride and even bear children. So then you have to ask that. How was she in raising her children, procreating? Was she a happy mother? Because she says, oh, I've built this family life. Don't want to break that up. But were you happy as a mother? Were you happy to be a mother? Very important questions. Because I'm sure the separation came when the children were being considered late teens. But still, nonetheless, they're affected because these are their parents. Are they happy now, Will and Jada? And will they continue to live this separate life? Thank you for joining me, everybody. Once again, if you'd like to donate to this great network, $BeGansy1 tonight, Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome to the live stream. I will put up some polls pertaining to this new information. Feel free to comment below the video. Take the polls. Check my community page for said updates, breaking news, and any new information I get pertaining to this storyline of these two individuals. I will bring you an update. Take the polls, everybody. I'd like to hear how you think, your opinions of said information, and naturally there will be a lot said once the book is released on Tuesday. Worthy is her memoir, Jada Pinkett Smith. Thank you for your time. You have been listening to The Vault. Exhale.